Excuse me,
Oh,
Laurie.
Mr. Brackett, I'm sorry, Mr. Brackett.
Oh, I didn't mean to startle you.
That's all right.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
Oh, damn it! Oh, Miss Tate, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make you jump.
It's okay.
Well, hey, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare.
Michael, stop! I've had my share.
Hi there, guys. Welcome back to Monster Nation, and this is our Halloween episode. It is the premiere month to be a horror fan.
Absolutely.
And
it's the most wonderful time of the year.
Exactly. And keeping with the Halloween theme, we decided that we were going to actually talk about the Halloween series.
The Halloween series.
Since we're on the subject of the whole series, which spans many wonderful decades, what sticks out to you about the series, or do you have a favorite film in the franchise?
Yeah, well, I kind of one of my all-time favorites, Halloween and Psycho, are my two favorite movies of any kind, but certainly of horror.
Right.
So.
I definitely have a love for Halloween. It kind of follows after Nightmare on Elm Street series, but I still think the Halloween series is really good. Yeah, my all-time favorite will always be Nightmare and Scream and then Halloween. But I will say I think Michael Myers is probably the most attractive out of all of them. So if I wanted to be pursued by a murderer, although I'd have to probably be related to him, I guess, right?
Favorite films, the ones that I really go back to, the first three, because even though the third one is a plotline completely unrelated to Michael Myers, it still really feels like a Halloween film because it was the last one that was written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, has the music by John Carpenter and Alan Howarth, has the cinematography by Dean Cundey, who really gave the original Halloween its distinctive look, and that, the idea there's always something in the frame with the characters, and just the style that really makes it. So I love those first three movies. I didn't really appreciate part three until later, but now I just find it tremendously entertaining and cool. Very 80s, It's, if you don't know about it, it's basically about a maniacal mask maker who has this plan to slaughter millions of children tied into this really annoying Halloween commercial. 3 more days till Halloween, Halloween.
Those masks are rocking, though.
Yeah, the masks are really, they're very generic, but they're very, creepy.
Well, I think part of the plot line, too, was they were like ancient druids from, didn't they bring in parts of Stonehenge to activate
and
the
the only,
masks?
it's such complete hooey, but it's knowing hooey, because the only explanation they give to how they managed to move the rocks from Stonehenge is he just said, we had a time getting it here. It's this great performance by the actor who plays the villain.
What is it, the robot, the sex bot that
the fembot
turns onto the
spoiler. Just give it away, but yes, there was a lot with robots. It was just, it was smart because it was just so completely different. Michael Myers was the prototype for so many, stock and slash so-called dead teenager movies, although he did it a lot better than a lot of the things that followed. That original movie it's so stylish, it's so eerie, there's such a mystery, you don't really know what motivates Michael, why he's after these people. John Carpenter admitted that the whole idea of having Jamie Lee Curtis's character be Michael's sister was because he just didn't know where else to go with the story. He really pulled that out of his ass. And then it became this big part of the mythology, but the original idea is that he just very randomly is targeting this poor girl and her friends, and that randomness is what makes it so scary and lends it this almost supernatural quality that got more and more overt in some ways as the movies went on.
Yeah, no, but I definitely agree with you when you were talking about part 3, because I don't think I appreciated it until much later, but for me, part 3 was always like this, it was kind of like this weird thing on the side, because I remember back when Suncoast Video used to be around, and that was when VHS tapes were still being sold. I remember they had the Halloween series out on the shelf every Halloween, and it was always Michael Myers, and there was part 3, and I would read it, and I would be because back then I wasn't allowed to watch horror movies like everything else, but it was so of course it made it enticing, and I'm well, what is the big deal with all of these and all that stuff? And I remember reading the back of the box cover, and I still remember the original box cover where the 3 silhouetted children with the different masks on, and they're walking over this big hill, and it's season, I think it says Season of the Witch or something like that.
Yeah, that's the subtitle of the film, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
But I have to say, it's such a shame in some levels, because I do think despite the randomness we talked about with John Carpenter, I actually think that he was really ahead of his time in trying to make an anthology film series. And, and him,
I think it was a great idea. I kind of wish it hadn't came out, because that was the idea, was that every year you would get a different Halloween film.
I just can't believe that
different story.
I know. I really can't believe that it's almost like, damn, that would have like been awesome if that would have kicked off. But oh well, we still got Michael Myers out of it, which wasn't bad. But I have to say, like, for me, and this might be blasphemous, but I really think one of my favorites was H2O.
No, I don't think that's blasphemous at all. I think that's a really fun movie. It's really smart, and you know what was great about it was they built the whole film around Jamie Lee Curtis, because she came back to the franchise 2 decades later, because she never forgot where she came from, always appreciated that horror movies launched her career, and so they did this really deep emotional backstory about what the sort of traumatic effects had been on Laurie. I mean, that movie deals with a lot of really intelligent, deep things, while at the same time just being a really fun, a little gorier, slasher movie.
But my favorite part in that movie is when she's running. There's many of them, but two of my favorite ones I think is when she's like go to town, and she turns back and she busts that axe out of it, and she's like Michael, and she's going and looking for him. But I think what's also really funny is after they scuffle for a little bit, she finds this. She's trying to run away from him. She opens the closet door, and she's like, oh fuck, because it's like the last time in the first movie she got stuck in the closet with a hanger, and so she's like, I'm not doing this again. And then he opens the door, and that's when she blasts him with that fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
So it was good, because I even think Kevin Williamson must have wrote a draft, or
he did. He did the entire thing from beginning to end. Well, the only thing they had already written the opening sequence is just one of the highlights in the movie, where the nurse also comes back from Halloween 1 and 2, and has her house broken into, and that's how he finds out where Laurie's living and stuff. But
little Joseph Gordon-Levitt's, a very young was in there. He's a little punk kid that I think he gets killed actually with his hockey skates.
He does. But yeah, that's a really smart, clever, fun movie. It also has a great cameo from Janet Leigh, Jamie's mother, the star of Psycho, that has all these great Psycho references.
She's by the original car from Psycho.
Yep, exactly.
So you really get double duty homages in that one film. But I think the reason why that one sticks out to me probably more than any other one in the series, is because that was when I was first really getting into horror. It was like the late 90s, and like Scream was really huge, and that of course gateway into the whole genre. So not only was it, and Kevin Williamson really he probably was a lot like John Carpenter in the sense that like there were probably a few directors that really were able to be the faces of the genre. Just like the way James Wan is kind of head of, and the Blumhouse people are kind of like the face of horror now. I really felt like Kevin Williamson was that in the 90s, him and Wes Craven. So that's what really got me in, and it was really tasty to see him get his hands on something like Halloween, because I think he did a great job with it.
That had been like a lifelong dream of his.
Yeah.
I mean, he said he was introduced to Jamie Lee, and she was the one who said, hey, why don't we do a new Halloween? And of course he was like, oh my god, I'm not worthy. Like, I'll go anywhere you want me to. But then that set the scene for the extremely polarizing, but I think underrated, underappreciated remakes that Rob Zombie did.
Yeah,
he did.
Those were like heavy metal.
Halloween and Halloween 2.
Halloween heavy metal style.
So do you want to talk about the shade that John Carpenter threw at Rob Zombie? I mean, there was some major shade.
Shine some light on that shade. Tell me all about it.
well, basically, John Carpenter in an interview said that that he didn't understand why Rob Zombie supposedly thought that John Carpenter had been cold to him, and he said, I told him to just go and do his thing, make it his own. But then he basically gave the same criticism that many fans have given the new Halloween remakes, which was that it gave Michael Myers a backstory that destroyed an essential part of his appeal. And that's a valid point, and I totally see it. The first movie, I think, is this really weird mishmash with like one half of an interesting, very Rob Zombie movie, which is the first 40 or so minutes that are all about, Michael Myers' childhood and his white trash family. I mean, of course Rob Zombie was going to go that route. Who could not expect him to go that route? That was not surprising.
He has a thing for like those hillbilly Satanist type things.
Absolutely. And so that
all on
part,
meth and moonshine.
that part, as ridiculous as it is, I mean, it's very Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
But then it was like the studio was saying, no, you have to hit all the beats of the original movie. So then it becomes this really rushed retread of the first film that just doesn't add anything. I think the film that really gave Rob Zombie the chance to put his distinctive imprint on Halloween was Halloween 2.
Yeah.
Because that movie is really not a remake of Halloween 2. I mean, there's a prologue set in the hospital, which is a really great set piece, but that's as close as it gets to being like Halloween 2. It's a really dark psychological story that basically shows, in a way sort of like H2O, how Laurie's life has just been completely ruined and devastated by her encounter with her brother Michael Myers. And, you know, the visuals are just off the charts and really interesting. He does some great stuff with that character. You know, Malcolm McDowell plays him as this sort of fame-hungry, you know, kind of nasty person who finally gets a chance at redemption when Michael comes back. So that movie was interesting. But yeah, the first Halloween remake, it's a mixed bag, and I'm giving it a lot more credit than most people would. Most people just panic completely. So.
Sorry, Squirt.
Now there's kind of an ugly duckling entry in the Halloween series that I think we both like, right? Which is Part 6.
But I think they were really trying to go the supernatural route in Part 6, because I think it wasn't the curse of Michael Myers, where I don't know, he was connected to Satanists or some cult.
True. The interesting thing is the director's cut makes a lot more sense, or the producer's cut was recently released on DVD for the first time after being available as a bootleg for many, many years. The theatrical cut is like kind of a confusing mishmash.
So that actually made it
what they were going for.
That actually was in theaters. I always thought that was like a direct to DVD like.
No, Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers was a theatrical release, but it was a huge. I mean, it might have done okay business, but it was so poorly received by fans and critics that it effectively killed the franchise for several years.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you know, I will say but the Curse of Michael Myers, I have to say the supporting cast I remember being almost more freakish than actually Michael Myers, because I think there were some shots of some of the cult members, and I'm like, you people are. It's almost like Texas Chainsaw territory, you know, with a New England bent instead of that Southern racist looking, you know, freakish, you know, type of person. But I think that's the sequel where he died, the doctor dies in it, right? And
yes, that was Donald Pleasance's final appearance as Dr. Loomis.
And Paul Rudd, wasn't he in one of them?
Yeah, Paul Rudd plays the grown-up little boy that Jamie Lee babysat in the original.
Oh, okay. So that's a cool way to tie together. But
yeah.
I have to say, even though I do think it is a much more inferior sequel, the ties that I have to it were actually quite special to me, because I remember growing up, you know, when I was getting into horror, like I've mentioned a million times already, I actually had a really good friend, and that was one of the first horror movies, you know, outside of the Wes Craven craze that was going on,
right?
That I actually remember watching with him, and I know much like the way Halloween was a big deal for you, it was a big deal for him, and I remember that we used to watch it in the dark in his basement. Order a pizza, go through a couple of those movies, and it was great. It was really, really great. It actually, and it's weird because I think it's crazy to say that I equate that movie with him, but since he passed away, that movie, it's weird that I always remember him for that, because he was actually the one that showed me Hellraiser and a lot of the other sequels to Halloween during that time. So there was some good that came out of the Curse of Michael Myers, even though it seemed to curse the franchise.
Right.
So, yeah, I think pretty much Halloween was a pretty stellar series for.
Definitely.
It's cool that it's, you know, been kept alive for so long. So
absolutely.
It's a real testament to William Shatner.
Look where?
Behind the bush.
I don't see anything.
I drove by so fast.